If you are a resident of Zambia, whether you are an individual or a corporate or a business, you are required to pay tax. This is a general requirement for every citizen, individual or corporate residing in Zambia. Now, in my next series of videos, I'm going to focus on Zambian taxes and what your requirements are as a resident of Zambia. What are your obligations and how do you protect yourself from the penalties of not meeting these obligations? Today, I want to have a look at an overall general overview of Zambian taxes and drill down into the taxes for small businesses, referred to as turnover tax. So in terms of how I'm going to progress with my production, I'm going to start looking at small businesses, taxes that small businesses and individuals are required to pay. And then I'll move on to medium-sized businesses or SMEs. And then I'll finally move on to the large corporates. What kinds of taxes are they required to pay? So before we get started, I would like to encourage you to subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button. It's at the bottom, it's down here. Please click subscribe. And also don't forget to smash that bell icon so that every time I release a video, you are reminded. And if you enjoy what I do, don't forget to give it a like also. Now, let's get started. Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Ndalama Insights Business Show with Mukonki, Mukonkela, where we turn your challenges into actionable insights. As I've already said, today I'm looking at Zambian tax. When it comes to tax in Zambia, you need to be aware of two major types of taxes. We have direct tax and indirect tax. So when you think about direct tax, these are taxes which are taxed directly from the person that is responsible for paying that tax. So the person that is making the income is the one that is taxed and is the one who's obligated to make sure that they submit the returns and also pay the tax that they are required to pay. That is direct tax. Examples in Zambia include income taxes. Now, we've got different income taxes. We've got corporate tax, we've got pay as you earn, we've got turnover tax, which is what my video is going to focus on today. We've got mineral royalty tax, and we've got several other taxes that fall under direct taxes, which I'm going to cover in a separate video. So each tax is going to have a separate video. Indirect taxes are taxes whose liability can be shifted to another person. This is normally taxed on goods and services, either sold or purchased. And these are taxes that, you can actually transfer the responsibility. They are normally paid by end consumers. Taxes such as value-added tax, customs duty, excise duty, surtax are just a few examples of indirect taxes that we are required to pay in Zambia. So those are the two major types of taxes in Zambia. And I'm going to go into the details on each of these taxes, so don't you worry. Today, I would like to focus on turnover tax. As I said earlier, I want to look at taxes from small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and then large corporates. All right, I will also look at individuals as well. So, I want to look at turnover tax today. What is turnover tax? Turnover tax is a tax that was designed for small businesses. These are businesses that are selling or turning over less than 800,000 per year or up to about 66,000 every month. Okay, so if your business turns over or sells under 800,000 every year, you are required to register for turnover tax. Now, there are certain businesses who are automatically required to register for income tax and not turnover tax, regardless of whether their sales are below 800,000. Consultancy businesses, mining businesses, partnerships, These are businesses that are required from the onset to register for income tax and not even look at turnover tax. So you need to be aware of that as well. Otherwise, generally, any small business selling less than 800,000 per year should register for turnover tax. So as a taxpayer, immediately you register your business with PACRA, you are automatically required to register for turnover tax, especially if you know that your sales are going to be below 800,000 in that particular year. So get a tip-in for your business and register for turnover tax. Now, at what rate is turnover tax taxed? Okay, so even as I give you this rate, which is a flat rate of 4%, you need to be aware that tax rules change frequently. They are not written in stone. This is where you find the annual budget that takes into account different, tax revisions that may affect your type of tax as well. And this is the reason why people pay attention to the national budget. You also need to do that, because just recently, or in the recent past, turnover tax was actually not a flat rate. It was under different tax brackets. So tax rules change, and you need to be aware of the rule that is affecting your business in this particular tax year or charge year. So you need to be aware of the changes in terms of tax that are affecting you. We reverted back to a flat rate of 4% for turnover tax, meaning that if you sell goods worth, let's say 100,000, you are required to pay 4% on that 100,000, which is 4,000 kwacha. So your net sales will be 96,000 kwacha. The 4,000 kwacha must be paid to the Zambia Revenue Authority, who's the custodian responsible for tax compliance, collection, and responsible for all taxes in Zambia. Now, I just mentioned that there are normally tax changes that are announced by the Ministry of Finance every year in the budget address that you need to be aware of. One major change that was effected on 1st January 2022 was rental income. Now, rental income used to be under the withholding tax regime, or used to be accounted for under the withholding tax regime. From 1st January 2022, rental income was brought under the turnover tax as well as income tax regimes, meaning that if you are in the business of leasing or renting out property, and probably also operate another business, depending on what requirements you've met for the kind of tax you're supposed to register for, you are supposed to pay turnover tax on that rental income. Okay, now let me simplify this further. So if you are a small business that is registered for turnover tax and you run a grocery store that turns over less than 800,000 a year, but you are also, an owner of property, you rent out different shops at the same time, you are required to pay turnover tax on the rental income at 4% if that rental income is below 800,000. If the rental income is above 800,000, even though you are registered for turnover tax, because your sales from the shops or from the shop is less than 800,000, you will be required to pay 12.5% rental income. Okay, so when you are submitting the return for your turnover tax every month, there's going to be an additional schedule that is going to be opened up for you, that is going to allow you to account for your turnover tax as well as your rental income. Now, again, let me simplify this a little bit further. When it comes to managing your rental income, how do you determine whether you should, register for income tax or turnover tax? What determines whether you should register for turnover tax or income tax is not your rental income. It is your income from your normal or general business apart from the rental income. That's what the rules say. Okay? So any sales that you make other than the rental income, which is below 800,000, requires you to register for turnover tax. If it's above 800,000, you're required to register for income tax. Okay? However, if your rental income is above 800,000, you'll be required to pay 12.5% of rental income. If your rental income is below 800,000, you'll be required to pay 4% of tax on that rental income. Okay, so if your rental income is above 800,000, you'll be required to pay 12.5% of tax on that rental income. If it's below 800,000, you pay 4% on that rental income. All right, so this was a major change that affects businesses from 1st January 2022. It was announced in the budget speech of September 2021 by the Minister of Finance. And so you need to always listen to the national budget by the Minister of Finance, because there are normally regular changes with regards to tax that affects your business. The way you were treating turnover tax last year might not be the same as next year. So always be aware of those changes. And actually, Inside Partners Africa does an annual Know Your Tax workshop, where we don't just look at the budget changes, but we actually go practically and look at how this affects your businesses. How does this affect, your obligations as a taxpayer? So look out for the Know Your Tax 2023 workshop that will be held in February and March. It's held in Lusaka in February, and in March we are on the Copper Belt. Okay, so the 2023 Know Your Tax workshop is going to look at tax changes announced in the 2023 by the Ministry of Finance in 2022 that affects the 2023, budget, or that affects your company in 2023. So look out for that. Are there any returns that you are required to submit when you register for turnover tax? Yes, indeed. You are required to submit monthly turnover tax returns, which are actually pretty simple. When you log on to ZRA, if you've registered for turnover tax, you've got a tip-in, you've got a login, or you've been given login details, the password. You log into your company profile. You can then select returns and submit your turnover tax return every month. Now, turnover tax returns are required to be submitted by the 14th of the subsequent month of your turnover or your sales. So for example, right now we are in October. If you want to submit your turnover tax for October, it is due on the 14th of November. You can also submit manual turnover tax returns, which are required to be submitted by the 4th of every month. However, payment of the turnover tax is due by 14th of the following month or subsequent month. So whether it's manual or an online return that you are submitting, you are required to pay the actual tax on the 14th of the following month. As a taxpayer, it is a requirement that you keep proper records of your business transactions. These are sales, these are purchases, and any other business records that will help the ZRA to determine whether you actually qualify to be under turnover tax, or you are required to go to the income tax regime or not. And these records you need to keep for at least 6 years. So keep proper records of your business transactions. Should you not follow the requirements, as a taxpayer that is registered for turnover tax, you will be penalized. Should you not submit a return, whether it's a new return because you didn't have any sales, or you didn't pay the actual turnover tax that you had declared on your return, you will be penalized penalties. However, currently ZRA is running a tax amnesty. So declare those tax returns, submit the tax returns, pay the tax due, and you take advantage of this tax amnesty so that you are not penalized. You won't pay the penalties until March next year. So take advantage of the tax amnesty that is currently running. Well, this is all I had to share on the turnover tax. Next, I'm going to look at when your sales exceed 800,000, which taxes are you required to pay? So that is what I'm going to look at in my next video. you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give it a like and also share it so that others can learn more about Zambian taxes. If you like what I do, don't forget to subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button. It's up here. Click subscribe. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.